everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Christine. I like to read dark and disturbing things, and today I'm just going to be talking about some of the things I have read so far in the month of March. If you're new here, I always try to check in mid-month. I'm a little bit late this month because that makes it so much easier to recap what I'm reading as opposed to waiting till the end of the month and going through like 10 to 15 books, which this little memory doesn't always remember. So I'm going to be talking about what I read in the first half of the month, including what I read for the week of weird. So let's just get into it. I don't have too many to talk about because I had one DNF and 4 other books. So I'm really only talking about 4 books mostly and then a DNF. The first book I read was something that has been on my shelf for a while. By the way, I think all of these have been on my shelf. I've been really working on reading what I own so far this year and not purchasing too many new books. But this is The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. This was a book of the month pick back in June of 2023. I don't feel like I've had it that long, but apparently I have. Maybe I got it later on. This was kind of a random pick for me. I saw a lot of people talking about it and enjoying it at the time, and this is not dark or disturbing. It is not a horror book at all. It is more of just a lighthearted fantasy book. We are following, who's our main character? Lucy. She is a kindergarten teacher's aide. Like, she's not fully teacher yet, but she spends a lot of time, she's on her way to becoming a teacher, and she spends a lot of time with a certain boy in her class, or that was in her class the year before, I believe. He's like 7 now, and he lost his parents in some kind of accident, and so she's always kind of kept an eye out for him and does some after school tutoring with him and just kind of hangs out with him after school, and is his friend, has been like this constant person in his life since his parents have passed. Now, he doesn't have any other family members to live with, so he has been going from foster home to foster home, and she really wants to adopt him, but does not have the money to do so. She has to prove that she is stable enough financially before she can be a foster parent to him. Which brings us to the turning point of this story, where there becomes an opportunity where this children's author who wrote a bunch of books, what were they called? The Clock Island series. So it's this author that wrote a whole bunch of books that really encourage kids to use their brain to solve little problems. And he hasn't written a book in many, many years. He has kind of went into hiding, and he lives on his own version of Clock Island, where he has built his own house on this island. And he decides that he is coming out of retirement. He is going to write one final book, but he is going to make a competition for a handful of selected people to like win the rights to this book, so they could do what they want with it. They could keep it for themselves, they can sell it and make a bunch of money. So obviously, on top of already really liking this author's books, Lucy decides that she is going to try to win this money so she can adopt, what's his name, Christopher? Yeah, Christopher. I'm sure you could see where this is going. I will say it took a pretty straightforward path to where you think it would lead, and until the end. There's some things that kind of got, you know, switched up in here, but this is definitely a feel-good book. It's fairly short. It is only 286 pages. So if you're looking kind of for like a cozy read, like a lot of people have been into cozy reads, I think this would probably fit the bill. It was a bit saccharine for my taste. First of all, I was already kind of annoyed that someone would tell a little boy that they are going to adopt them. This is not something she kept to herself. She talked to this little boy all the time about how she was going to adopt him one day and really got his hopes up. I thought that was kind of crazy for someone to do to someone when they can't really know that they can fulfill that wish for them. So that did irritate me a little bit. Other than that, these contestants that end up fighting for this book, it does kind of go in a way that I didn't think it was going to go, which was a pleasant little surprise because I thought it was fairly transparent. But again, it was kind of like watching a Hallmark movie but without the romance. Well, actually there is a little romance, but that's not the main focus of the story. So if you're into that kind of thing, which I know a lot of people are, then you probably will like this book. I thought it was okay. I would probably give it 3 stars. I'm not mad that I read it, but it was a little far-fetched for my taste and a little too saccharine. Like I said, I just wanted a little more darkness or a little more reality kind of put into this book, but that's not what it is. It's like a Hallmark movie, and if you're into that, you probably would like it. So, the next book I read was, or didn't read, I guess, was my DNF, and that was called Our Winter Monster by Dennis Mahoney. This was one of the books I talked about in my new horror releases that came out in the first quarter. I believe this came out in January, and I got this from my library. So I'm glad that it was a library book and not something I purchased, because it was feeling very much like a 3-star at most, and I just decided to discontinue it. This one is about a young couple that are on vacation, and there's a big snowstorm, and all of a sudden they are separated and fighting for their lives in the snowstorm, where there seems to be this like creature or entity that is killing people. There was a component to this book where I think we kept flipping back and forth between present time and something that had happened like a year or two before. And I never got to find out what that was about because I DNF'd it. So obviously something that happened in their past is sort of related to whatever is going on right now. I think I got to probably 40 to 50% in this book, and I just wasn't really gripped. I was kind of struggling to pick it back up every time. I just wasn't really invested. So I ended up DNFing it, and that's all I got to say about it. I'm pretty sure it would have been, like I said, a 3-star max. I'm looking on Goodreads right now, and it looks like it's sitting at a 3.31 with 554 ratings. So I've just tried to get a little bit more cutthroat with my DNFs. The next book I read was a novella called Rest Stop by Nat Cassidy. I ended up reading this for Week of Weird. Everything I read, or the next 3 books I read, are part of the Week of Weird readathon. This wasn't like my first choice, but I do think it kind of fits into the Week of Weird because, see the googly eye? Here we go. All the googly eyes. I think anything with googly eyes, and in this there is something that has a lot of googly eyes. I think that fits Week of Weird. I'm gonna count it. This one's about a man who is on kind of like a bit of a road trip. I think he's going back home because someone is ill or someone's passed away, I forget. And he's on his way there when he has to pull over and get gas and go to the bathroom, and all hell breaks loose from there. This one I thought was going to actually take place in one of those like creepy ass rest stops that you see when you're on the highway, at least here in the States. There'll be like a place where you could pull off, and if it's during the day, it's not so bad. Like there's other people around, and there's usually a place outside that you can have like a picnic if you've brought food, but the insides are always pretty creepy and deserted. And if you go to any of these in the middle of the night, it's just kind of scary because there's no one really in charge of these places. So that is not the case in this book. It is actually a gas station. There's not too much I can say because I don't want to ruin it. It's a novella. He basically pulls off on the side of the road, and he is not able to leave the rest stop for quite some time. And that is not by choice. Let's just say that. And it gets kind of crazy from there. I will say that I wish I had not read, there's like a little trigger warning section at the beginning. At least I assume that's what it is. Yeah, it's just like, heads up, this contains this, 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 and this. I wish I hadn't read that because to me, it took away the element of surprise. Like when certain things were happening, I was like, oh, this must be this part or that part, because I read the beginning that told me that. So that's on me. I guess I didn't realize that's what I was reading at first. I was kind of looking for the synopsis, which there isn't one. And yeah, so if you don't like to be surprised, just go straight to chapter 1. And I think I would have enjoyed it a little bit more if all of it had been a surprise. But since I kind of knew what was coming up, it was still a fun time though. I would give this 4 stars. It's just a bloody, violent, weird, fun time in a rest stop. What can I say? If you like slasher type things or just weird little horror books, I think it's worth a read. The next one is a book that I was buddy reading with Kelly from Kelly Hooked on Books, and she was very intelligent and DNF'd this book, and I wish that I had DNF'd it too. That is What Kind of Mother by Clay McLeod Chapman. I really enjoyed Wake Up and Open Your Eyes by this author that I read the month before, so I was excited to get to this one that's been on my shelf. This one was not for me. What is it about though? It is about a woman who is going back to her hometown. She has a teenage daughter with someone and they are separated. The parents are separated. And I think the dad suddenly decides he wants to be in her life. So she goes back home so that her daughter can have a chance to know her biological father. And I don't really honestly know why that's even part of it. Basically, this woman goes back home and she is reunited with someone that she dated or flirted with when she was younger or something like that. Like this guy that she remembers. And they start talking, and her whole job is that she is a tarot card reader or a palm reader. No, sorry, she's a palm reader, but really she's just a, you know, it's a scam. She can't actually read palms. She just kind of can read tells off people and tell them what she thinks they want to hear. So unfortunately, this guy had a son who went missing when he was an infant. His son goes missing when he's an infant, and it's been several years now, I think like 7 years. And he is still looking for his son, and everyone, you know, says, you know, of course he's probably no longer with us. He's probably dead. He's been, you know, something has happened. Some people suspect that he did it or that his wife did it. And he insists that no, his son is still out there somewhere and he wants to find him. So he gets his palm read by our main character, and she actually does feel some sort of connection, and she starts to get like a, you know, like a second sight, or feel like she's getting some kind of read off of him and his son. So the beginning half of this book reads very much like that she is going to try to help him solve this by following her intuition that she didn't even know she had. About halfway through, there is a twist, I guess, or a development in the story, I should say, where things kind of change. And from that point on, the tone of the story changes very much, and it feels very much like a fever dream from that point forward. By now, Kelly has tapped out. She's done. And by the time I wish that I had, I wanted to DNF this, I had like 100 pages left, or a little bit under 100 pages left. I'm like, no, I'm sticking this through to the end. And it was just, to me, it was not worth it. I think this is supposed to be grief horror, but in a way that just didn't work for me. I feel like it was trying to use a lot of metaphors to speak about parenthood and motherhood, and I was just not getting it. There were just so many like underwater crab-like sea creature imagery that it just, I don't know. Maybe it means a lot to this author. Maybe he was going through something, and instead of talking about it very plainly, this is the way he could get it out of his system and write something in super vague terms. I don't know, but it didn't work for me, and it was just way too fever dreamy, and it made me hate it. When something is too much of a fever dream, it's kind of like a dream sequence thing that I hate, and I feel like it is not great writing. It is just not, I feel like you should either say what you want to say or don't, but this in-between very vague thing, it's not for me. So maybe it's for you, but it's not for me, and I'm kind of sad about it because I really liked his other book. I find him very entertaining to watch on Instagram too. I'm going to give this 2 stars. I'm very sorry, but I didn't like it. And last but not least, for Week of Weird, I read Monstrilio by Gerardo Samano Cordova, and this is also a grief horror. And it's kind of weird because I was reading these two at the same time, and they, if you just look at the outline of it, are very similar in a lot of ways, but they are still very different. This one is more of a literary horror. I did already talk about this in another video, and I will post that down below if you want to get like my fresh synopsis and my reaction to it. I will probably go way more into detail in that video, but this is about, again, a young couple who lose their son. I think he's about 10 or 11, and he had only one lung when he was born, so he had a lot of health problems, and he passes away. And it is about how the two parents deal with this grief in very different ways. The father probably deals with it in a more what we would call traditional way. He is, you know, curled up in a ball. He's crying his eyes out. He is trying to, you know, wrap his head around this, how he's going to live his whole life without his son. And the mother is more in like this numb-like state where we are in her head to begin with. This goes through like 4 points of view, and it's hers to begin with. And she cuts a piece of his lung out of his body and decides to keep it. And later on, here's this folktale about someone who kept the heart of somebody that they loved and put it in a jar and fed it, and it turned into a man. It turned into a whole new human being. So following that logic, she feeds the lung some broth, and sure enough, it starts growing into this creature, which at the back of the book, it's kind of weird because they put this on the cover, but this creature does not really represent how he is described in the book. They call him Monstrilio, and he looks like this. He's just kind of this ball with a arm, like a hand at the end of a tail, kind of like a monkey tail, and he like uses it to swing and get around. And he has an appetite for living things. So we go through the 4 stages of different characters and their points of view, and from the time that he passes until like, I don't know, like 10-15 years in the future, and just how the death of one person can change the lives of so many around them, and how different people grieve in different ways. I will say people seem to really love this book or really just not vibe with this book. And I felt like I was a little in between. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I really did enjoy it. I don't think I quite enjoyed it as much as some other people did, but I still could appreciate this book objectively, and I don't think there's any other book that I've read quite like this. So I thought this was a great way to round out Week of Weird. So far in this month, these are my 2 favorite books. If I have to pick a favorite, I mean, this one is such a fun, silly book. Of course, this I think would appeal to way more people, but this one, it like is going to take place in my head and not leave for quite some time. So this one, you know, it kind of matches my shirt. This one so far has been my favorite read of the month. So yeah, I feel like I didn't finish a whole ton in the first 2 weeks of March, but I got some books done. I got 4 books off my physical TBR, so that's awesome. And at the end of the month, I will let you know what I read in the second half and give you my definitive favorite of the month of March. So let me know down below if you've read any of the books I talked about, or if you plan on picking any of them up, or maybe not picking them up after I talked about some of these. Let me know down below, and thank you guys for watching. As always, stay spooky.